Welcome to PLUSone, the series where each month I look at the free games on PlayStation Plus and tell you if they're worth the download. After all, the games may be free, but your time is valuable. Today I'm looking at Rime, one of the fastest turnarounds from launch to PS Plus inclusion that I can recall. Only released back in May of 2017, Rime is an open-world puzzle/adventure game very much in a similar vein to Ico. You take control of a young boy that's been washed ashore on a mysterious island, and you solve simple platforming sequences and puzzles in your attempt to find your way back home. There's no health bar, no combat, just you, the island, and some animals, most notably this cute little fox that'll act as your guide. The very first thing you'll notice when you boot Rime up is the effort that went into the aesthetic side of this game. Featuring a cel-shaded art style and a heavy emphasis on water that immediately drew comparisons to The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, the game is certainly a looker. The camera angles as you cross specific bridges give a great cinematic feel, and when you're high up it often pans down to give you a real sense of perspective. Not to mention the dynamic lighting brought on by the day-night cycle can be absolutely breathtaking at points. The underwater sections of the game are just gorgeous as well. It's not all peachy, however, as the game runs incredibly poorly at times. A choppy frame rate is pretty frequent on a regular PS4, despite the game only targeting 30 frames per second. And this can absolutely take away from some of the wide shots that are meant to elicit oohs and ahs. The gameplay is relatively simple. You'll go through the world, figuring out environmental puzzles to get further into the island, and through optional exploring you can find toys, trinkets, and other smaller collectibles. I quite enjoyed the puzzles that Rime had to offer here. None of them are ever particularly taxing, and at the same time none of them are necessarily super unique for this kind of game, but they're unique enough that I never noticed. In particular, I really enjoyed the perspective-based puzzles, where you would shift the camera around until these golden blocks lined up correctly. Yeah, I know they're pretty common, but it gave me an excuse to look at this game's world more, and that's always a plus. There's not much story to be had here, at least not until the game's ending sequence. Before that, there are hints of something more via murals and in-world hints, but those never seem to go anywhere once that twist comes. Without spoiling anything, Rime's narrative, if you can even call it that, ends up coming off as shallow, even though I do appreciate what that ending goes for thematically. A swing and a miss is still at the very least a swing. Arguably my biggest issue with Rime, while we're talking about theming, is that it very much feels like a few different games thrown into a blender. Even if you cast away the Wind Waker comparisons visually, and the mechanical comparisons to Team Ico's trilogy, there's also the tease of this red cloth figure that, along with the fox, guides you to your next objective. I'm sorry, but this is just the journey guy. It's one thing to take influence, it's another entirely to outright nab a core concept, and that's what it feels like Rime does here. This figure also plays a key part in the game's overall story, so to me, it even sours the impact the game has because of the clear comparison my brain's automatically gonna make. The team at Tequila Works made a game based heavily off their key influences, and in doing so, the game never actually steps out of the shadow of those influences. Now, that said, even in spite of these issues, if you're a fan of Team Ico's work, a wordless narrative structure, or even just the game's art style, I do think it's worth giving a +1 to your collection. It most likely won't stick in your head for years to come like an Ico or a Journey, because it's mostly a well-traveled path by now, but this whole bubbling subgenre of puzzle adventure games can always use another title. If you're looking for a game with a little bit more action, this probably isn't the one for you, unless you're a trophy hunter, because it should only take you about a day or two to get Rime's Platinum. It's only going to take a little over 4 gigs on your hard drive too, so don't be afraid about space. Rime retails for $30 if you're watching this video after the game's no longer free. At that price, I would wait for a sale. I think $10 to $15 is the perfect range for this one. Do you think you're going to pick this one up? Or if you already did, what do you think about it? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to see all of my PlayStation game reviews and much more.